He went to where we make tawaf. In that area, there were two idols standing, Asaf and Naila. And people used to sacrifice animals in between these two idols. Hubal represents which personality of history? Habil. And Habil is the son of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, that was murdered by his brother Qabil. The Quraysh have realized that they have been insulted, that they have not received anything. And the finding of the Zamzam, that is a holy well, is attributed not to the entire tribes of Quraysh, but only to Banu Hashim. You made a promise you will sacrifice one child. You didn't say you're going to sacrifice a ghanam and a baqarah and a ibl. No. You said you're going to sacrifice one child. So sacrifice one child. So now he starts to remember everything. He says, all right. Now you can understand the commitment of this person, the connection that he had with Allah Almighty. Now, out of all the sons, the dearest to him was the youngest, and that was Abdullah, who is the father of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem amma ba'd. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. قال الله تعالى في الفرقان الحميد لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. صدق الله العظيم. My beautiful family, continuation of last week, a recap of what we studied last week. The grandfather of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose name is Abdul Muttalib, his original name is Shayba. Remember? We made mention his name was Shayba. Later on he is known as Abdul Muttalib. He is the grandfather of Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he left a very beautiful, rich, deep legacy. One aspect of his legacy is that he is the founder of the Zamzam well that was concealed, hidden from mankind for the last 500 years. And we made mention that there was a person from the Jurham tribe, when he came to the realization that Makkah will be taken over by different people, he threw into the well of Zamzam some gold, some swords, armor, and he concealed it. After 500 years, when Abdul Muttalib was sleeping in the Hatim, he saw a dream. And a person said to him, Ihfir madnuna. He took it lightly. The second day, he saw the same person in the dream who said, Ihfir barra. Then he saw the same person the third night, or the third time, and that person said, Ihfir tayyiba. So these are different names of Zamzam, meaning pure, very, very vast, so on and so forth. The fourth time he saw the dream, the person said, Ihfir Zamzam. Ihfir Zamzam. And then the person said that Zamzam is a water that is continuous, that never stops, and it is blessed. So now what happened is that Abdul Muttalib knew that the dream is pushing him to dig out the well of Zamzam. But where is the well of Zamzam? So he asked the people. And the people said, look, the one that is coming to you in the dream, wait for him. He will tell you where it is. So he went to the same spot. He went to sleep. He saw another dream. And he asked the person, where is the Zamzam? And that person gave him 3 or 4 signs. He said, it is between the filth and the blood. Around that area will be a nest of ants, and there will be a ghurabi a'sam, a crow that has a white belly. So the following day, he went to where we make tawaf. In that area, there were two idols standing, Asaf and Naila. And people used to sacrifice animals in between these two idols. When he went there, he found the filth of the animal and he found blood. And around there, he found the nest of the ants. And then there was a crow that crash landed and it had a white belly. So now he knew that this is the place where I need to dig to find the well that has been closed up for the last 500 years. So he started digging, and the people, the Quraysh people said, "What are you doing?" He told his son, Harith, that you stand here as a guard and do not allow anyone to come. And he only had one son at that time. So he started digging for 3 days. He dug. And after 3 days, he hit something. And basically, it was the foundation of the Zamzam. So he said, Nare Takbir, Allahu Akbar. When he chanted the word of Allah, the people came. And they said that, look, this does not belong to you alone. This belongs to us, the people of Quraysh, all the tribes that I made mention of. Remember? So now Abdul Muttalib says, no. This belongs to me. The dream came to me. I am going to be the one that finds this Zamzam. I don't want you to contribute to this. So as we made mention last week, the conclusion of that dialogue was that we will go to a sorceress and she will tell us what to do. And this sorceress or this fortune teller was in Sham. So they all traveled to Sham, to Damascus, to Palestine. And en route, they run out of water. So they're ready to die. And Abdul Muttalib says, I don't want to die like this. So he stands up, his animal stands, and water gushes forth. So this was a very, very strong sign for all the people that were representing the different tribes of Quraysh, that Abdul Muttalib is the person of water. So they said, we don't have to go now to the sorceress and ask her, let's return back and we will not interject, we will not interfere, you dig the well of Zamzam. That's where we ended last week. Now, we made mention that Maddad bin Jurham from Maddad bin Amr from the Jurham tribe, he was the one that concealed everything. And he put some gold in there, and he put some swords in there and some armor. Now Abdul Muttalib with his son Harith, they are starting to dig, and suddenly they find gold. And they start to find swords. And they start to find armor that is very, very valuable. So now all those people that promised not to interfere, they arrived once again. And they said, we should have something out of this. Now I'm going to just stop there. In my study of the Zamzam well, I came across something amazing. 97, when I went for Hajj, there's some brothers here from Saudi Arabia, they have been there well before myself. Uncle Ismail is here maybe before 90, Uncle Shamsul Islam before 97. But we used to go downstairs to the well of Zamzam. This is in 97. And I heard before that you could even go a bit closer. When the Khuza'a tribe was taking care of Makkatul Mukarramah, well before that, a person fell into the Zamzam well. And people didn't know where he went. And he drowned. And he died in the Zamzam well. He died in the Zamzam well. Now, if the body remains in water for some time, it starts to bloat. And then it implodes. It bursts open. So now the ruling is if a human being or an animal falls into a well, if the person or the animal does not implode, and is intact, then you will take out maybe 20 buckets of water, 30 buckets of water, 50 buckets of water in relation to the size of the animal. And then the remaining, of course, you pull out the animal, you pull out the human being, take out the buckets of water, and then it becomes pure. But if the human being or the animal implodes, burst open, then you have to take out all the water. There's no other way. Even if it is a bird, you have to take out all the water if it implodes. That's the ruling. Now, people used to drink from this water. They used to drink from this water. So this person fell in, and after a few days, people felt that the taste of the water is not so good because they were drawing buckets of water, and it doesn't taste too well. So they sent somebody in Zamzam, and they found that that person who was missing for some time, he had imploded in the water. So all his guts and everything was in the water. So the people at that time said, we have to draw all the water out for it to be pure for drinking. So it has been made mention in Islamic books that when they reached right at the bottom of Zamzam, to their amazement, there were 3 streams of water gushing forth. Not 1, 3. One was towards Hajar Aswad. So those people that have been down those stairs to the Zamzam well, they will know that this is Hajar Aswad and the well was around here. So the stream of water that was gushing forth, and it was the strongest amongst 3, was close to the Hajar Aswad. And most probably that's what was visible to people for a very, very long time. But it was not only 1 stream, it was 3 streams of water gushing forth. But the strongest one, the heaviest one, the mightiest one was the one that was close to the Hajar Aswad. So they drew out all the water, and of course, from that time onwards, it remained pure. Coming back to the story. So now there's a big dispute upon the property that has been attained from the Zamzam. It is gold, and they said that there was a animal made out of gold, 2 animals that were made out of gold. So it was not a little bit of gold, it was a lot of gold. And the swords and the armor were very, very valuable. So now Abdul Muttalib says, this belongs to me. Now all the different people from the Quraysh tribes, they say, no, we've got a share in this as well. We've got a share in this as well. So now there's a mighty dispute between Abdul Muttalib and the remaining tribes of Quraysh. So now how do they solve this problem? So Abdul Muttalib was a very intelligent person. He says, look, there is an idol whose name is Hubal. We'll speak about idols, like I said last week, maybe in time to come. Hubal represents which personality of history? Habil. And Habil is the son of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, that was murdered by his brother Qabil. So Hubal represented Habil. So when people used to draw lots, Qura andazi karna, draw lots, they used to go to the caretaker of Hubal. So he was responsible for drawing lots. So Abdul Muttalib said, look, let's put the swords and armor in one bag, and let's put the gold in one bag, and let's have 6 arrows. 2 will represent the Kaaba, 2 will represent Abdul Muttalib, and 2 will represent the remaining tribes of Quraysh. Does it make sense? And we will draw lots. So they had different colors. So the scholars have made mention that the 2 arrows that were yellow were designated for the Kaaba. Yellow arrows were for the Kaaba. The black 2 arrows were for Abdul Muttalib and his son Harith. And the white 2 arrows, they were for the remaining Quraysh. So they took these 6 arrows of 3 different colors in pairs of 2, and they went to the caretaker of Hubal, and they put these 6 arrows in a quiver, in a case. And they said, draw the lots. So they drew the first 2 arrows, and these 2 arrows that were drawn out were yellow. All right? And beside that came the gold. So the gold animals belong to the Kaaba. The gold animals belong to the Kaaba. Got it? They drew the second lot, and that was the black arrows that was representing Abdul Muttalib and Harith, and they got the swords and the armor. Drew the third lot, nothing. So the remaining group of Quraysh, they got nothing. As this procedure was accepted unanimously by all before it was implemented, so they had nothing to say. Now do we see the Kaaba door? Which color is it? Gold. Abdul Muttalib is the first one that adorned the door of the Kaaba with gold. So Abdul Muttalib introduced this tradition. Before that, it was a normal door because the animals were made out of gold. And when they drew the lots, the two gold animals belong to the Kaaba. So how are they going to use these two animals that are made out of gold? They adorned the door of the Kaaba, and that tradition remains till today. The swords and the armor were hanging inside the Kaaba. So Abdul Muttalib did not benefit from it for some time. Later on, there is a story, I don't want to get into that. It was stolen. The gold was stolen as well. The armor was stolen from the Kaaba by certain people. And this was before, you can say, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam becoming a prophet. So in a very short period of time. But Abdul Muttalib is the person that adorned the Kaaba with gold. All right. Now, whilst this was all happening, and let's go 2 steps back. Before receiving the gold and the weapons from the Zamzam, Abdul Muttalib, when the water came out, what he did is he looked around and water was very, very strong, just like in the time of Hajar and Ismail. So he made ponds around the well. He made ponds around the well. I made mention last week that Qusay bin Kilab, he was the first person to introduce wells in the Mataf. And I made mention last week, see if you remember, he made one well, and he was the first person to make a well in the Mataf, in the house of Hazrat Ali's sister, known as Umm Hani. And I made mention that the journey of Laylatul Isra wal Mi'raj started from Hani's house. And that was a well, so people used to go there. Now, when Abdul Muttalib saw the strength of the water, he made, you can say, ponds around. But he was becoming too popular. First of all, he's given the sword and the armor to the Kaaba. The Quraysh have realized that they have been insulted, that they have not received anything. And the finding of the Zamzam, that is a holy well, is attributed not to the entire tribes of Quraysh, but only to Banu Hashim. So they're very, very jealous. So what they were doing is, at night time, when Harith and Abdul Muttalib, they made the ponds, they used to, do whatever they needed to do to secure the water. At night time, some people used to go, they used to jump into the ponds and make the water dirty. They used to break the ponds as well. They used to leave the water filthy. So now Abdul Muttalib is very disturbed. What do I do about this? So he goes to sleep once again. And like I said before, he's a very pious person. And that's why Allah Almighty is, you can say, guiding Abdul Muttalib through dreams. Through dreams. So Abdul Muttalib sees a dream. And he complains to the person in the dream that I'm making all these ponds so people can benefit from the well. But there are some people that are disturbing this fabric. They're breaking the pond. They're leaving the water dirty. So this person says, all right, make dua. And make this dua, Allahumma inni la uhilluha li mughtasil walakin hiya li sharib hil. Make this dua. And basically it means that this water is only to drink, not for any other reason. And then it was made mention that once you make this announcement, people that use it for any other reason than drinking, they will fall sick. They'll fall sick. So now those people didn't take it seriously. So they came at night time, they started to do what they were doing every night, and the following day they were sick. So now they say something's going on up here. So they stop breaking the pond. They stopped, leaving the water impure because people were becoming sick. So this is something else to do with the Zamzam. All right. Now a very interesting phase starts in the life of Abdul Muttalib. I made mention that when Abdul Muttalib was digging out the well Zamzam, he only had one son. His name was Harith, only one son. Later on he had many. And he felt that because he only has one son, people are pushing him. He doesn't have strength. I made mention many a times in my tafsir program that Walid bin Mughira, the father of Khalid bin Walid, had 13 sons. 13 sons. He was very, very wealthy, but at the same time he had 13 sons. Think about the father walking and you've got sons like Khalid bin Walid walking on your right and on your left. You're a powerful unit. So Walid bin Mughira was a powerful unit. In those days, having many, many sons was an indication that you're very mighty. Abdul Muttalib knew that the different tribes are coming and they're pushing him and they're interfering because he does not have manpower. He only has one son, Harith. So at that time, he made a dua. Or let me say he took an oath. Abdul Muttalib took an oath. And this is whilst he's making the Zamzam or finding the Zamzam. He took an oath and he said that, "Oh Allah, if you give me 10 sons, I will sacrifice one son in front of the Kaaba. If you give me 10 sons, 10, I will sacrifice one," meaning truly sacrifice one son in front of the Kaaba. Right, done. Now what happens is, a time comes when Abdul Muttalib is blessed with 10 sons. He's blessed with how many sons? 10 sons. They made mention of the name Hazrat Harith, the first one, then Zubair, Hajal, Darrar, Muqawwim, Abu Lahab, Abbas, Hamza, Abu Talib, and Abdullah, who's the father of Nabi Kareem Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. These are 10 sons. Abdullah was the youngest, and he was the dearest to Abdul Muttalib. He was the dearest to Abdul Muttalib. Now, after being blessed with 10 sons, and you will come to know of the story of the elephants next week, Abdul Muttalib is very, very popular. He's a very pious person, I told you before. He's been inspired by Allah to do certain things that are all contributing to the foundation that will allow the Prophet of Allah to come into this world. So there's a lot of people that are very, very jealous of him right now. There's a lot of people jealous of Abdul Muttalib, but they don't have much say. They don't have much say. Now what happens is, Abdul Muttalib forgets. He forgets that he made this oath. Now, before we speak about the oath and what happened and did he sacrifice the child, remember what is the Islamic ruling regarding oaths, vows. We call it nadhr. So I'll just give you 2 verses and you can go back home and study them. If you go to Surah Hajj, and Surah Hajj is Surah number 22, and you go to verse number 29, there's a very lengthy verse, and in this verse Allah says, وَلْيُوفُوا نُذُورَهُمْ. وَلْيُوفُوا, wafa, fulfill your oaths. And then if you go to Surah number 76, Surah Dahr, and you go to verse number 7, there's a very interesting story pertaining to Hazrat Ali radiyallahu ta'ala an, in which Allah Almighty says, Yufu bin nadhr. They fulfill. People that are very muttaqi, pious, close to Allah Almighty, they fulfill their oath. But as Muslims, we know that if the oath is of haram, we don't fulfill the oath. If I take an oath that I'm going to burn this mosque to the ground, I don't fulfill that vow. I can't fulfill that vow because it's haram to burn down the mosque. So I can't fulfill that vow. So what do I do? So then Allah Almighty says in the glorious Quran, and this is Surah Ma'idah, Surah number 5, verse number 89, فَكَفَّارَتُهُ إِطْعَامُ عَشَرَةِ مَسَاكِينَ. And there are a few more steps, but you can feed a poor person, 10 poor people, 2 meals per day. And then inshallah, the breaking of the oath is okay. But don't fulfill the oath if it is haram. So just keep that in mind so you don't get stuck in the story. So Abdul Muttalib, he says, I'm going to sacrifice my child. I'm going to sacrifice one child. Now, he didn't make mention which child, but he said one from the 10. I want you to keep this window open in your mind when listening to this story. And this is amazing. We speak about Ismail and Ibrahim in the days of Dhul Hijjah. And you can go to Surah Safat, Surah number 37, and you can study from verse 100 onwards. And in a verse, Ismail says, what does it? Satajiduni insha'Allahu min as-sabirin. That you want to sacrifice me, I am ready. I will be from the patient people. So he was ready. This statement was made by 10 brothers. It's amazing. No one knows this. This statement that Ismail made, all 10 brothers made this statement. As we will come to know of the story, how it unfolds. So now what happens is, Abdul Muttalib one day, he's sleeping, and that same person comes. And that person says to him, Ya Abdul Muttalib, O Abdul Muttalib, Awfi binadharika li Rabbi hadal bayt. Awfi binadharika. Fulfill your vow li Rabbi hadal bayt. In the name of the Lord of this Kaaba. You made an oath. So Abdul Muttalib says, all right. So he goes and he sacrifices a goat. He goes and sacrifices a goat. He goes to, he thinks, that's it, I've made the sacrifice. He goes to sleep. The following day, the same person comes. He says, goat is a bit too small. Make a sacrifice. Awfi binadharika li Rabbi hadal bayt. Make a sacrifice. So he goes and he sacrifices a cow now, Abdul Muttalib. And he thinks that's good enough. It's a bit larger than a goat. He goes to sleep the third day, and the same person comes and he says, no. Something greater than a cow. So he goes and he sacrifices an ibl, the camel. Sacrifices the camel. And he thinks that's it. There's nothing bigger than a camel. I'm not going to sacrifice something else or a hoot or something like that. Nothing like that. So camel is the largest. But the person comes the following day. He says, no. You're forgetting your oath. Sacrifice one of your children. You made a promise you will sacrifice one child. You didn't say you're going to sacrifice a ghanam and a baqarah and a ibl. No. You said you're going to sacrifice one child. So sacrifice one child. So now he starts to remember everything. He says, all right. Now you can understand the commitment of this person, the connection that he had with Allah Almighty. Now out of all the sons, the dearest to him was the youngest, and that was Abdullah, who is the father of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And we'll speak about Abdullah next week. The nur of the Prophet of Allah used to rotate, used to make tawaf in the face of Abdullah. Very beautiful face. So what happens is, Abdul Muttalib, he calls his son. Abdul Muttalib calls all his sons. And he says, look, whilst me and your elder brother Harith were digging out the well of Zamzam, I took an oath. And I said that if Allah blesses me with 10 children, I will sacrifice one. Now, I don't know who that child is going to be. We have to draw lots. All right? We have to draw lots to find out which child it is going to be. But are you all ready? And all of them said, وَفَعَلْ مَا شِئْتَ. You do what you have to do, we are ready. Zubayr said this. Muqawwim said this. Abu Lahab said this. Abu Talib said this. All of them said, we're ready. You are our father. Whoever's name comes, he is ready to be sacrificed. The same statement that Ismail made to his father. All 10 children of Abdul Muttalib, including Abu Lahab. Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. This was the commitment that these people had. Allah chose this nation for a reason. Allah chose them for a reason. They had certain qualities that were in line to what Allah Almighty wanted people to be. Of course, there needed to be a little bit of polishing here and there. But all of them said, we are ready. So now what happens is, they draw lots, and the name that comes forward is the name of Abdullah. and he's the youngest. So now the riwayat are very, very different. But one riwayat, one narration is that Abdul Muttalib, he takes Abdullah in between Asaf and Naila. The two idols. Remember, that's where they used to sacrifice animals. He takes Abdullah in between the two idols, ready to sacrifice him. He puts him on the ground. He puts his foot on him. And the aunties and the brothers, they pop in. And they have to grab him. They have to rescue Abdullah from Abdul Muttalib sacrificing. And in this tussle, and in this push and shove, they say that Abdul Muttalib's shoe or whatever he was wearing, it left a very deep scar on the face of Abdullah. Now this is something new for me as well. But he was so committed, it was very, very hard to pull Abdullah from Abdul Muttalib. He was ready to sacrifice. And who pulled him out? They say it was Hazrat Abbas. Hazrat Abbas was very, very young as well at that time, but he pulled him out. But it left a scar on the beautiful face of Hazrat Abdullah radiyallahu ta'ala an. All right, now what happens? All the aunties, all the Quraysh, they said, no, this is not going to happen. They said, look, we need to find a solution to this. Because this is going to open a door for many, many people in the future to slaughter the children. If this happens now, children are going to be slaughtered. We need to stop this. So they said the only way we can stop this is now the narration goes two ways. There was a sorcerer in Yathrib, in Medina. And there's another narration that there was a sorcerer in Khaybar. So they said that let's go to this sorcerer and let's see if they can come up with a solution that can save Abdullah from being slaughtered. So let's say they went to the sorcerer in Khaybar. And when they went to the sorcerer said, all right, look, it is something complex. Give me 1 day, I will make mashra with the jinnat. Because they used to make mashra with the jinnat. And I will tell you tomorrow. So Abdul Muttalib and all of them are waiting. The following day he says, I've got the solution. He said, how many animals do you sacrifice per person? Now, what is the sacrifice of one person? So if one person is murdered and you want to give the ransom, how many animals? They said 10 animals. I said, all right. Do this, go back home, put Abdullah on one side and draw lots. If the arrow indicates that sacrifice Abdullah, increase the animals by 10. So 10 animals each time. And then when his name doesn't come, that's it, stop there. So before this practice, the ransom for a human life used to be 10 animals. Just keep that in mind. Now what happens? Abdul Muttalib goes back home. All right, he says to everyone, look, this is the solution to bring an end to this practice. Is everyone happy? He said, everyone is happy. So now what they do is, they put Abdullah on one side. And they have a quiver, a bag of arrows. And they start drawing lots. Now amazingly, each time they pull out the arrow, it indicates Abdullah. So each time the animals increase from 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So he was, like in cricket, they flip the coin. And some captains have a very bad luck. Each time they lose. So Abdul Muttalib was losing. He wasn't a very good, gambler, you can say. So he lost 10 times. So it went up to 100. So he has to sacrifice 100 camels. But what happens now is the next time they do it, it comes that's it. Abdullah's name doesn't come. But Abdul Muttalib was so persistent, he said, draw the lot again. That may be a fluke. He wanted to increase to 110. So they did it the second time, and it wasn't the name of Abdullah. He said, no, once more, because 2 times can be a fluke as well. They did it the third time. And when they did it the third time, it was not the name of Abdullah. And they said, that's it. From today onwards, it will be 100 camels. So they sacrificed 100 camels to release Abdullah from being sacrificed. Now, there's a very interesting story. We have made mention of this. I touched upon it. I don't speak about it too much because we don't have to go into deep knowledge. We don't have to go into deep knowledge. But there is a understanding amongst the people of faith. And when I say the people of faith, the people of the Kitab. So, of course, Muslims, Jews and Christians. The Jewish and the Christian understanding is that the child that was sacrificed was Isaac, not Ishmael. All right, so I don't want to go down that path. All right, but that is understanding. We say it is Ismail, they say it's Isaac. One of our proofs that the son who was sacrificed was Ismail is the following story. It's the following story. Imam Ibn Kathir makes mention of this as well. All right, Imam Tabri makes mention of this as well. And the story follows something like this, that one day Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiyallahu ta'ala, and he was sitting with a few people. And suddenly one person, he started to speak about the Zabih, the one that was sacrificed. May it be Ismail, may it be Isaac. So they started to speak about the Zabih. Now, what happened is, Amir Muawiyah smiled. And they said, why are you smiling? They said that for this topic to open up in front of me is a miracle in itself. They said, why? He said, one day I was sitting with the Nabi of Allah. One day I was sitting with the Nabi of Allah. And a person came and he addressed the Prophet of Allah as Ibn Zabeehain, the son of the one that has, the son of the two fathers that have been sacrificed. Easy translation. Two fathers that have been sacrificed. The Prophet of Allah smiled, and then this person said that my town is struck by a drought and the animals are dying and there's no food up there, and you are Ibn Zabeehain. This is a title that he addressed the Prophet of Allah. Can you show some generosity to us? So the Prophet of Allah smiled when he said Ibn Zabeehain. He smiled. Now, Amir Muawiyah, when he spoke about this, they said, what are you talking about, Ibn Zabeehain, the son of the two that have been sacrificed? And Amir Muawiyah said that Zabeehain, one is Abdullah, because he was to be sacrificed, and Muhammad is the son of Abdullah, and the second one is his forefather, and that is Ismail, who was to be sacrificed. And Prophet Muhammad is from that family tree, Ismail coming downwards, Ismail Qaidar and coming downwards. So he is the son of the two that were to be sacrificed. Does it make sense? So this is a very strong evidence of those people that say that Ismail was the one who was sacrificed, not Isaac. Now, Imam Tabari makes mention of a story in the time of the Umayyad dynasty. It's an interesting story, and I gave you the principle that if a person takes an oath that is not halal, what he needs to do, he can't go through with the oath. Right? Keep that in mind. One lady, and Marwan bin Hakam was the Amir of Madinatul Munawwara. Marwan bin Hakam was the Amir. He was the Amir. And one lady came to Abdullah ibn Abbas and said to Abdullah ibn Abbas that I have taken an oath that if this is to happen, I will sacrifice my child. If this is to happen, I'm going to sacrifice my child. So what should I do? Said this to who? Abdullah ibn Abbas. Abdullah ibn Abbas took guidance from this story of Abdul Muttalib, and he said that you have to sacrifice 100 animals. Who said this? Abdullah ibn Abbas. You have to sacrifice 100 animals. Oh. So she goes to Abdullah ibn Umar. Abdullah ibn Umar is a scholar as well. Goes to Abdullah ibn Umar. What is the ruling? Abdullah ibn Umar comes to know that Abdullah ibn Abbas has given this fatwa, so he remains silent. He doesn't give fatwa. But from his body language, it seems like he is not in agreement with this fatwa. He's not in agreement with this fatwa. So this lady doesn't know what to do now. She's been to two scholars. One scholar comes out and says you have to sacrifice 100 animals, like Abdul Muttalib did. The second scholar, Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of Hazrat Umar, great muhaddith, He remains silent, but from his body language, it seems like you can't go ahead with this. So she goes to the Amir, Marwan bin Hakam. He's not a scholar. And Marwan bin Hakam, he uses his own intellect and he says, look, this is lagh. Right? This is lagh. This oath is not right. It is a haram oath. And you don't have to fulfill a haram oath. And then he alluded to the verse that I spoke about in Surah Ma'idah, verse number 89, Surah number 5. And he said, just feed 10 people. And that's what the lady did. And that is the standing rule till today. That is the standing rule till today. All right, a recap of what we studied. All right. Where did we start from? So we're going to, today's lesson started from finding the gold and everything. Now the people interfered. So what did Abdul Muttalib say? Abdul Muttalib said, all right, 6 arrows. 2 for the Kaaba. Do you remember the colors of the Kaaba arrows? Yellow. 2 for Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. No, 2 for Abdullah. Yeah, or Abdul Muttalib. Which colors? Black. MashaAllah. And 2 were abiyad, 2 were white. And that was for the Quraysh. So the 2 yellow arrows, what did they get? The gold. And the 2 black for Abdul Muttalib, all the armor and the weapons, everything. And then the 2 white, mashallah, nothing. All right. So where does the gold go? It goes into the Kaaba, and that's the first time that the doors have been adorned with gold, and that is a tradition till today. The sword and the armor was hanging in the Kaaba. So now, and we made mention of that person that drowned in the Zamzam. Remember that? Keep that story in mind as well. So there were 3 streams of water that were gushing forth. The strongest one was the one that was close to Hajr Aswad, to this area. All right. Then we made mention, what did we make mention after that? The ponds, mashallah. So made the ponds around it. So people were very hasid. They were very jealous. So at night time, they used to disturb the ponds. They used to leave the water very, very filthy. So the person came in the dream and said, make a dua that whoever disturbs the water, leaves it dirty, he will become sick. And then basically that person used to become sick. And then that stopped everything. Now when Abdul Muttalib was digging out the Zamzam, finding the Zamzam, he made the dua that if I have 10 children, I will sacrifice 1. So now he's blessed with 10 children. He's forgot about that oath, and the person comes, so he sacrifices a goat, then he sacrifices a cow, sacrifices a camel, doesn't work out. He says, you need to sacrifice your child. So now, which child? All children said, we're ready, that my father can fulfill the vow. So he goes, draws the lot, whose name? Abdullah. Now he's ready, and he's put him down on the ground between Asaf and Naila. He's going to sacrifice him. And what happens? That the brothers come, all right, the aunties come, they pull him out. The sisters, the aunties, they pull him out, secure him. But now, what is the solution? The solution is we'll go to the sorcerer. The sorcerer will give us a solution. The sorcerer says, what is the ransom of a human body? They said 10 animals. Put 10 animals on the side and draw lots. So 10 times, 100 animals. And then after 100 animals, the drawing of the lot did not speak about Abdullah, it spoke about the other side. So that was 100 animals. And that is the ransom of a human being till today. That is the standing law till today. It has 100 animals, true? Till today, even in Saudi Arabia, that is the standing law. I think that's it for tonight, inshallah.